The alarm clock buzzed before dawn. Alyssa Brooks, 29, sat quietly at the edge of a narrow bed in a modest room with creaky floors and faded curtains. Her long, wavy chestnut hair was loosely tied up, and she reached for her worn sneakers with the routine of someone used to early starts and long days. The silence of morning wasn't peaceful. It was necessary. She moved like someone who had no choice, but carried something inside her, a persistent light, barely flickering but never out. The kind of inner fire that whispers, "Go. One more day." Her backpack was light. Inside, a few dozen small water bottles, a cloth for wiping them, and the detail that made her stand out. Handwritten quotes she'd stick on each bottle. Today's message. It might be just water, but it's honest. She rode the bus across town and got off near Madison Avenue, a long upscale avenue in the heart of the city where no one made eye contact unless they had to. But this is where she went every day. Because here, ironically, people were always thirsty. Damian Cole didn't need alarms. His body ran on deadlines, investors, and expectations. At 35, he had everything. A multi-million-dollar empire in real estate, a name that echoed in corporate circles, a corner office that touched the sky, and a void that no contract could fill. That morning he wasn't late, he was just lost. His driver took the usual route. His schedule was packed. His phone buzzed with numbers, meetings, deals, but when they pulled up to a red light near Madison and 4th, something unexpected happened. He looked out the window and paused. Alyssa stepped between the rows of traffic. The morning sun was strong, and her dress, a light cotton fabric, clung to her as she carried her small cooler on wheels. Her smile was faint but real. She wasn't begging. She wasn't selling pity, she was offering water, and maybe something else people didn't realize they needed. One car window rolled down. Not just any car, a luxury black sedan. A tinted window descending in the middle of Madison Avenue was practically a miracle. She hesitated, then stepped forward. Inside she saw a man in a dark tailored suit, dark hair, neatly trimmed beard, serious eyes, not the usual buyer. "Cold water, sir?" she asked gently. He looked at her, really looked. "How many do you have?" He asked. She blinked. 10, maybe 11. "I'll take them all," she stared at him, half laughing. "All?" "Yes, but on one condition." "Which is?" "Tell me your name." She hesitated. "Alyssa." He extended a $50 bill. "I'm Damian." She began handing the bottles over slowly, watching his expression. He wasn't rushed. He wasn't checking his phone. He was present. "Do you work here every day?" he asked. "Almost. Until I can pay the rent. Or maybe go back to school one day." She said it casually, but there was weight behind her words. Damian looked at her, and something in him shifted. Not sympathy, not guilt, recognition. He remembered a younger version of himself, hungry, tired, determined. The light turned green, horns blared. Damian paused, took off his watch. A sleek, understated piece, expensive, but not flashy. "This isn't about value. I want you to have it," he said. "So you remember that today someone saw you?" She froze, and before she could answer, he was gone. That evening, Alyssa placed the watch on her nightstand. She didn't wear it. She didn't sell it. She just looked at it. It wasn't about the money. Was the message behind the gesture. She'd spent years feeling invisible, and for once someone didn't just see her. He acknowledged her. Meanwhile, Damian sat in his office, surrounded by glass walls and silence. From his briefcase, he pulled out one of the water bottles, still cold. The handwritten quote on it said, "It might be just water, but it's honest." He held it, stared at it, then placed it in the top drawer of his desk, above a contract worth $12 million, and somehow it felt heavier. The following morning, Damian returned to the same stoplight, same time, same car, same driver, but Alyssa wasn't there. He returned the next day, and the day after. No sign of her. He didn't ask around, didn't send anyone to find her, but every morning for a week, he rolled down the window, just in case, and when no one appeared, he'd sit back, quietly, with a feeling he hadn't known in years longing. Alyssa wasn't gone, she was simply changing directions. That day when she handed him the water, something passed between them. Not romantic, not dramatic, something human. And in a city of noise, deadlines and distractions, that meant everything. Damien returned to the same traffic light 3 times that week. Same driver. Same schedule. Same black car with tinted windows. But Alyssa wasn't there. At first he thought it was coincidence. The second time, he felt something tightening inside. By the third, he rolled down the window without thinking. Something he never did. The city's heat spilled into the car like a reminder that reality didn't care about habits. But inside Damien, something did. Alyssa wasn't sick. She wasn't hiding. She had been evicted. 3 days of late rent was all it took for the landlady to leave a cold notice on her door and change the lock before noon. She didn't cry at first. She just walked. No clear destination. Just the weight of her backpack and the echo of her own steps. That afternoon on another side of the city, she stood outside a local market with her water bottles and her handwritten quotes. She wrote a new one. "When there's no door, build your own way in." A young man bought a bottle and snapped a photo. Later he posted it with the caption, "She sells water with words stronger than any coach." The post spread quickly. Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok. But Alyssa had no idea. The next day, a woman in a business suit with a designer coffee cup walked up to her. "Are you the water girl with the quotes?" Alyssa looked confused. I guess." "Girl, you're everywhere. Look." The woman showed her the phone. It was her, in her dress, her water bottle, her handwriting, and hundreds of thousands of likes. Alyssa froze. She wasn't used to being looked at, not like this. That night she didn't sleep. Instead, she sat up with her notebook and started writing more quotes, more real, more hers. The next day she found a corner in a weekend street market and asked if she could pay to rent a cart. It was rusty. The umbrella was faded, but it was hers. She cleaned it, painted it, and taped her quotes on each bottle again. Soon, people weren't just buying water. They were coming to read the bottles. Some stayed to talk, others cried, some took selfies. Alyssa didn't just feel visible. She felt valid. Back in his office, Damien sat through a meeting he didn't care about. He heard the numbers, saw the charts. But his eyes kept drifting toward the corner of the room, where a small bottle with a worn-out label still sat inside a drawer. He opened Instagram out of habit and paused. A reel was playing. A street vendor with a handmade cart, quotes written in beautiful handwriting. Then he saw her, Alyssa, smiling, brighter, different, the same. But also yakos more. He leaned back in his chair, silent. The room kept talking, but something inside him had already gone quiet. A local news channel invited Alyssa to speak. She wore a borrowed blouse and jeans that still smelled faintly of paint. She braided her hair and held a bottle in her hands like it was a lifeline. The reporter smiled. Where did this all begin? Alyssa hesitated, then spoke softly. A man once bought all my water bottles at a red light. I was having the worst day. He asked for my name and gave me his watch before driving away. The reporter blinked. Why a watch? He told me. So you remember that someone saw you? The reporter smiled again. And did you? Alyssa nodded. I never forgot. That same night, Damien turned off his phone and watched her interview on his laptop. He didn't touch his drink. He just stared at the screen. She was glowing. Not from lights, from truth. He remembered how she looked that day at the light, and how it felt to finally see someone and be seen in return. For the first time in years, he whispered something to himself. I miss her. 2 days later, Damien's company was hit with a scandal. One of his executives had been manipulating reports. Investors pulled out. Stocks dipped. He wasn't guilty, but he was responsible. Instead of damage control, he stepped back, cancelled 2 trips, closed his office early, and sat alone, with nothing but that bottle on his desk, and a memory that wouldn't leave. Alyssa launched a small brand, Essence. She partnered with a local distributor, branded her water, kept the quotes. In her heart, she knew This wasn't about selling drinks. It was about giving people something real. In interviews, she always said, "Water refreshes the body. Words restore the soul." One night, Alyssa received an email with the subject, "You've been selected to speak at the National Social Impact Expo." She blinked. There, at the bottom of the invitation, a sponsor's name caught her eye. Damien Cole Foundation. Her hands trembled. She whispered to herself, "It can't be." The conference hall buzzed with muted excitement. It wasn't just another social event. It was the National Social Impact Expo, where people didn't just talk about change, they embodied it. Alyssa Brooks arrived early. Her long chestnut waves fell naturally over her shoulders, and her simple navy jumpsuit gave her both elegance and honesty. She wore no jewelry, no flashy heels, just truth. Her name tag felt heavy. For the first time, guest speaker, Alyssa Brooks in her hand, one of her original bottles, the quote still intact, "It might be just water, but it's honest." As she walked the hall, she passed a sponsor banner, Logos Foundations, and then she stopped. At the bottom of the banner in clean serif font, Damien Cole Foundation. Damien arrived late, not on purpose, just in thought. His beard was gone, hair neater, clothes simpler, no tie, just a white shirt, dark pants, and something unfamiliar in him. Softness. He didn't come as a CEO, he came as a man who once rolled down his window. When he stepped inside the hall and saw her photo on a screen, a marketing slide showing her cart and her quote, he stopped breathing for a moment. She was still her, but she had grown into someone even brighter, and suddenly he felt small, unprepared. Alyssa's speech wasn't long, but it was unforgettable. She spoke of street corners, of heat, of shame, of resilience. She spoke of labels and quotes and how sometimes a single look from a stranger can change your internal dialogue forever. People cried, people stood. But Damien didn't move. He stayed in the back, silent, hands in his pockets, eyes locked on her like the past had finally found a microphone. After the speech, Alyssa stepped off stage and made her way to the networking area. She scanned the room, smiled politely, accepted congratulations, and then someone tapped her shoulder. She turned, time stopped. Damien, slightly older, still magnetic, the same eyes, the same depth. For a moment they didn't speak, then, softly, "Alyssa?" Her breath caught. "Damien?" No embrace. No tears. Just that strange, soul-deep silence when two people who never forgot each other collide again. They stepped aside to a quieter space, a hallway with large windows. "You disappeared," she said, not as an accusation, but as a fact. "I came back many times, but you were gone," he replied. And then what? He looked at her. "I followed your story from a distance." She looked away. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because it wasn't my story to interrupt." He took a breath. "You were becoming exactly who you're meant to be. I didn't want to be the reason you paused." He reached into his coat pocket and took out a small envelope, worn from time. "I brought this." He handed it to her. She opened it. Inside was the original label from one of her bottles, the same one she had given him at the light. She stared at it. "You kept this?" "Every day since." Her eyes filled. "I thought you forgot." "Tamest Alyssa, you were the only thing I couldn't forget." The silence returned, softer this time. "So, what now?" she asked. He hesitated. "I don't know. I came here with nothing planned. Just hope." She nodded slowly. "I'm still figuring it out, too." They didn't promise anything. They didn't embrace. They just let the moment sit. Because sometimes love is in the space between choices. The next morning, Alyssa stepped into her car. She was scheduled for a radio interview. On the passenger seat sat a water bottle, her kind of bottle, but not from her stock. She knew immediately. There was a note wrapped around it, handwritten. "The first time I saw you. Now, I want to live you. D." Her hands trembled. She closed her eyes and smiled. The bottle sat untouched on the passenger seat. It had been there for 2 days. Alyssa knew who it was from. "The first time I saw you. Now, I want to live you. D." D. She read the note again, and again. Her hands trembled every time she reached for it, not out of fear, but from the quiet roar of memory. What he gave her wasn't romance. It wasn't seduction. It was presence. And that terrified her more than anything. Damien walked alone through the halls of the foundation. No suit, jacket. No assistants, no meetings, just him, and a memory he couldn't file away. He had walked away from the company, let others lead. He wanted something quieter, something real. But even among the gratitude of those he now helped, one face always returned. Hers. It was a late afternoon when Alyssa walked into the foundation's lobby. She didn't call, didn't schedule, she just showed up, a canvas tote bag in her hand, purpose in her steps. The receptionist rose, but before she could speak, Damien turned the corner. They saw each other, and the noise of the world melted. He walked slowly toward her. No smile, no questions. Alyssa handed him the bag. Inside, a single bottle of water, with a handwritten label. The watch still marks that moment, but now, I choose to stay. He read the label once, then again, and without a word he looked up, his eyes wet, his jaw tight. I thought about you every day, he said. But I didn't want to be a chapter in your story. I wanted to be worthy of your pages. Alyssa stepped closer. I didn't need a rescuer, Damien. I just needed someone who saw who I was before I bloomed, and I saw you. I know they stood inches apart. Their silence said more than years of dialogue ever could. Then, slowly, she took off the watch he had given her at the light, held it. Out to him. This was the beginning, he took it, and this is our next page. He placed it on the table and kissed her. No hunger. No desperation, just truth. Months later, Alyssa and Damien stood side by side at the launch of the Essence Project, a non-profit that offered microcredit, mentorship, and emotional support for local street entrepreneurs. The event was elegant, but modest, just like them. A reporter approached during the reception. How did this begin? She asked. Alyssa laughed. With a bottle of water and a man who rolled down his window. Damien added, and a woman who reminded me that the smallest acts carry the deepest truths. Behind them, the new slogan on the banner read, Essence, seen, heard, empowered. Later that night, Alyssa stood on the balcony of their shared apartment looking at the city. Damien approached with 2 cups of tea. She turned to him. Funny how everything started with something so small. He smiled. Maybe the smallest things are the ones that truly hold us together. She raised her cup. To water, watches, and windows rolled down. And to never being invisible again, he answered. They clinked cups and watched the city breathe. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss the next encounters between the Magnate and the Cinderella. More unforgettable stories are waiting for you. Just click the videos on the screen. True love transforms, and sometimes it starts with just one look.